Hello, folks. Bill and Brian here, and we are here to talk a little bit about the market on our usual Wednesday little podcast. Hey, Brian, let's roll the logo. Hello, folks. Here it is, Wednesday, and we are calling this December 6th. At least that's what we always call it. And listen, today is getting a little exciting out there in the natural gas world. There are people who don't think it's worth as much as other people.
No.
So the market tends to be going down, but we're going to talk a little bit about that. So, Brian, let's start off with the basics. Let's talk about fundamentals. What's going on with natural gas?
Yes. And first of all, thank you for joining. This is also linked to James at ArcisFX. Unfortunately, he had a last-minute curveball, so he's going to be unable to attend. We're going to express our opinion. We're not financial advisors. We're going to express our opinion, but I'm sure he's going to have some thoughts, and he's going to have some opinions to do on that. So let's take a quick look at the basics. So when we look at supply and demand in the United States right now, because we're talking Henry Hub, which is currently at $2.58. So that is where we are trading right now. But let's take a quick look at the supply side of the equation. Production is at 105.5, and there's indications that it may be a little bit up from there. And our Canadian imports are 6.3. They're very healthy for this time of year, and we'll dive a little bit deeper on that when we get into the supply side thesis. But now let's take a look at demand. Residential 41. This is last week's numbers. Next week, this week's numbers are coming out tomorrow. So tomorrow we will be looking at what is happening, and based upon weather and demand models, we're expecting somewhere north of 100 BCF of withdrawal. Now, seasonally and 5-year average, I think, is about 30 to 40 on a draw, but there are some expectations actually for a build. So we're having wild models out in the marketplace. What's interesting is electric demand is very high for this time of year. Industrial demand is about where it should be. LNG exports, of course, that's on the high at 14.3. Mexico exports are at 6.3. So let's just say actually, let's not just say it. 105.5 BCF a day of production, and then you have 6.3 of imports. So that's 111.9 on the supply side. You got to bear in mind, we are exporting over 20.6. So that is a very significant number. Storage is at 3.836, which is 8.6% above the 5-year average. And that is the reason that we are looking at this drop. We started this drop around $3 and what is the high there? 364, and we're down over $1. So this is a very significant move. Now, Bill, what happened? Why did we go from 364 to 250?
First of all, when you got more gas than you do demand, that's always going to drive your price down. Two, if you've got people on the technical side who are long and want to get back to short, they can do a selling session that can drive that down. When you have both, it can cause a pretty significant event in the pricing. I'm still fundamentally pretty strong. The weather has been a little mild according to our guys on Prestige, though. This is not really sort of what they expected, though. We're seeing that we're going to see some pretty cold winter coming in January. So I think it's Brian, I was just sitting here thinking, we look at the average, the 5-year average in storage and say it's high, but we're looking at the 30-year average of temperatures and say it's above or near normal.
Right.
And so we got something. There's always, with data like this, there's always a disconnect. Now, do I think we're going to reach my $3.99 I predicted by the end of the year? Probably not. Do I think it's going to get into the threes? Probably.
Yeah.
So
we're going to step through both the technicals and the fundamentals, but right now you touched on a good point, Bill, which is weather. When you look at weather, we have had unseasonably warm weather for November and the beginning of December, and it looks to be very choppy. Now, Prestige Weather has indicated and been consistent since the summer that the front part of the winter is going to be very choppy and the back half of the winter is going to be very cold.
Well, and Brian, I did traveling this last week, and I didn't put on a coat till I got 6,000 feet above sea level. So it's been
a fire last night, but we caught it in the nick of time.
It's been pretty mild. And folks, we're going to take a time out real quick. $89 a month. Energy Rogue Edge get you all this information. We talk about this. Brian and I talk about this every day, multiple times a day, with multiple different people. And so we get information on a regular basis. Also, on our Discord channel, we have live talks going on all day long. And we talk about going up, going down, going left, going right. It's if you want to be on top of the energy business, especially on the pricing and the demand, you need to subscribe to our $89 Rogue Edge product so that you would be able to be on top of it. If the oil and gas price affects your business, you need this information.
Right.
And if you don't believe me, give me a chance to tell you why.
Well, and so energyrogue.com, and you can click on the register button and follow that. What you get is you get access to our platform where you have interactive downloadable charts, over 150. You get access to our Discord channel, which we're having conversations in every single day. For example, this one is on commitment of traders. We send out a beginning of the week email that has kind of market sentiment as well as the building blocks. So it's $89 a month. You can find all this information or subscribe to other services and either spend 30 hours a week or $2,000 to $10,000 a month, or you can join us and we'd be happy to have you. So hopefully you can come over, but let's kind of get back to the building blocks. So Bill, thanks for presenting that. And we do need to cover, Jay, one of our members actually just texted that we need to start taking a look at European weather, which currently when you look at the weather, the last time that we talked with Prestige Weather, what's happening in the US is very similar to what's going to happen in Europe, that it's going to start off very choppy, cold, warm, cold, warm, and the latter half is going to be cold. So that is what it looks like. And that's another reason that natural gas has fallen off, because you could draw a line of TTF, which is the European benchmark, and you're going to have a 1-to-1 here. But I want to pull back and take a quick look at the technicals, because some people really like to look at that.
Hey,
we have had
Brian, before we jump into this, Tom's got a question here. I think that might be
great. Tom, hey, thanks for showing up. Good to see you. We'll chat with you on Friday there. Will weather triple draws boost natural gas back to 3? Big issue with the latest production data. How can there be production incentives with low prices for a year related to crude production? Okay, so these are great questions. Let's take them one by one. First, let's kind of get rooted in the technicals. We went from $1, well, $2 back in April, and we have been in this up channel. We did, from a technical perspective, break through this and drop. The last line of resistance for any hope for the bulls is going to be this 254 number, or 240. I actually have it at 248. So 248 is where I'm seeing. I thought 271 would hold. Obviously, I was wrong. But if you look at the macro of the energy complex, everything is negative, and it has to do with economy. It has to do with recession. It has to do with Russian production. So, so Tom, back to your question. There is a very, in my opinion, a very high likelihood we are going to see $3 in the next 10 days. That said, the counter to that is a lot of managed money took commitment of traders have increased their short positions. And we're not financial advisors, and you can see the disclaimers down below. But the next question, let's talk through this. The next question is on supply. Let's dive in a little deeper on supply side. On the supply side, let's look at this. In this chart right here, we have been growing and growing and growing. And what is really baffling to us is this most recent growth from October, November to today, this 3 BCF. Part of it is Permian Express and Whistler opened up some capacity, and that is masking the declines. When we look at the declines, they are coming, and they're coming probably, I'm not going to cover declines today, but they're coming in big waves. And
Yeah, they don't ever stop either.
I would stick to a forecast with the rig drop that we've had. Let's take a look at the rigs on a different tab. With the rig drop that we have had since, let's see, since June, we went from 755 rigs down to 623. There are some increases in efficiency, but it does not offset this type of rig drop. So,
Brian, can you pop back your price on TradingView there for a minute and go back to June and see where we're at in June?
June, we were down in this 231, 225 area.
And prior to that, did we have?
But then we did pop up in June and popped all the way up to 250.
So, Tom, and to answer your question, how can be production incentives with a low price for a year? It really depends on what their costs are and how they hedge their futures. So, if they hedge it at a higher price, then these lower daily prices do not affect them on their production. And so that is the way that when I was doing hedging for a producer, we always looked at how far out could we hedge. And we were hedging out as much as 5 years. And so when we had the right price, we would hedge out 5 years and be able to lock in that and then just negotiate the living daylights out of our drilling expenses.
And another thing to bear in mind is I'm going to bring up the Permian, just a few of the Permian basins, because when you look at production, you can't look at it as only a gas-related economics. These are initial production numbers for wells that are in these areas, such as Andrews County, Pecos County, Howard County, Reeves County in the Permian Basin. And these have 1,000 IP on crude oil and less than 1,000 on natural gas. So with crude oil dropping, it's important to realize that there's going to be a lack of interest, and that is going to reduce all these gas numbers. Now, there's a deeper discussion when we get into the Permian, we get into tier 1, tier 2. Jay, thanks for alerting us to that. But when we look at this, the low prices will not take off this crude oil unless crude probably gets to, what would you say, Bill, 40?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll happen more at like 50, 55. That seems to be the number I've heard from producers I've talked to.
Yep. So anyway, Tom, thanks for showing up. We'll talk to you on Friday. Hopefully that answers your question. If not, and everybody, please feel free to drop a question, drop a comment. We're here to answer it. Giorgio, hey, thanks.
And folks, we're here just to talk with you guys. We're
Yes.
not going. We're not out setting the market. We're not doing any of that stuff. We're all just in this together, trying to figure out where it's going, and we're open to everybody's comments and opinions. And you'll have ours based on decades of experience. And so let's talk about Giorgio's question. It's a very interesting question.
Yeah, great question. Okay, so when you're talking about TTF, there are let me actually.
Okay, so let's do a timeout. Not everybody know what TTF is, but TTF stands for Title Transfer Facility. It's basically in the Netherlands. It is the European benchmark for nat gas, and it is nat gas basically bought elsewhere and delivered to the title transfer facility in the Netherlands.
Yes. So, and on our website, you can see where JKM, which is the Japan Korea marker, and TTF, which is the European marker, and Henry Hub, which is the marker for the United States. So what we do is we pull this every day and provide this for all of our members to see where gas is trading in relative to different spots in the United States. But if you look at this number right here, you have $12 and $2.69. Last summer when we were at $9 here, TTF and JKM were in the 80s. So there is a relationship because there is over 20 BCF a day. Let me go back to this and just go to the dashboard. On the demand side of the equation, LNG exports 14.3 BCF a day is effectively bought in the United States and exported to a different spot. So what that means is the delta between 1271 and Henry Hub is consumed in some of the cost and some of the liquefaction and so on and so forth. So 14 out of 111 on supply. So you're getting to about 10% of the market relevance is based upon Henry Hub, or is based upon TTF, I should say.
And typically what you've got on that, when you're going out of that 14.4 that's exporting, which by the way is our max capacity at the moment. And there's more stuff coming on in late 2024, early 2025. But that's our max capacity. So anything that happens that changes that price doesn't really affect the U.S. as much because we're already shipping everything, except for any spot deliveries that's going on. And basically about 40% of the exports go to the Asia, about 40% go into Europe, and the other 20% just goes all over the world.
Well, and one of the interesting things, and I have this on our where we're going, which we're going to get to in a minute, but I want to take a look at this chart right here. We're currently in 2023. So this is where we are, which is right around just shy. Technically, our capacity is beneath 14 BCF a day, but we are currently delivering 14.3. Nameplate capacity is kind of an indicator of where it's going up or down. This next year.
And just remember, nameplate capacity is basically, they do the nameplate based on 80% of the total capacity. When I was building plants, that's what they looked at. They didn't ever put it at 100% capacity. Your nameplate capacity was basically had a safety margin in there of about 10 to 20%.
Right.
So people can produce beyond their nameplate.
So in 2024, we're going to increase by over 2.5 BCF a day. And then into 2025, we're going to increase by over 6 BCF a day. So that relationship, Giorgio, from TTF and JKM to Henry Hub is going to become tighter because we're going to have more of our gas that is exported. So listen, Tom had another question, kind of a follow-up.
He is sure
Analysts-
curious today, Tom.
Yeah, no, that's good. Keep them coming. Keep them coming. Analysts keep saying crude market is really tight. Market is going the opposite direction. Is the U.S. strongly influencing the market with high production? And what can OPEC do more over the last week? Okay, so we'll dive in a little bit deeper on crude oil on a different episode, but I'll give my take and then let Bill piggyback on that. My take is the speculation, the U.S. and the globe had very solid growth this year. The analysts are pointing to that growth is catching up from all the COVID orders. So it's not really growth as much as catching up. And that by the end of this year into next, we are going to be done with the inventory of catching up, and there's not new orders to replace it. So that impacts demands. So demand today is really tight, but when that window of demand drops off, as the analysts are projecting, that's the reason that we are headed down. What's interesting or fascinating is the crude oil and energy as a whole is heading down, which could be the leading indicator to the stock market. So the U.S. The U.S. is influencing things with high production. Now, I will say, let me look at this real quick. This on the supply side, we're at 13.2 million barrels a day on production. We've been at that number for 5 weeks. That is an indicator that we are starting to tip. What's interesting is crude is flatlined, gas keeps growing, and I think there's another layer that we'll get into in a different episode.
Right.
Another layer of depth there, but I think that's an indication we're about to start ticking down. So, Bill, do you have any piggyback thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think in regard to OPEC, they had gotten so used to it. Anytime they said anything, the market would respond immediately. And especially if it was a cut, it would automatically go up. They are not prepared for when they say that they're going to cut and the market goes down. That is a new thing for them. And so they are thinking, I feel like they're sort of reassessing their strategy toward announcing cuts. When Brian and I look at what they announced, because, they don't announce cuts in production. They announce cuts in targets. Targets are not production. And a lot of those countries were not meeting their targets. And so
Right.
So if you're not meeting your target by 500,000 barrels and you announce a cut of 200,000 barrels, it means nothing because you never were at that target anyway. And so I would look at the targets versus their actual production. And Brian's got a chart of that. And we if you want to look at it, we put it on last week. And so
we'll cover it in our Rogue Edge videos. So you also get videos as a Rogue Edge member, which appreciate all the Rogue Edge members that are on. Hope you're doing good. Reach out to us if there's anything we can do to help.
And for a nominal fee of only $89 a month, you can have all this information at your fingertips, and we can help you learn how to use it. And pretty soon you will be probably competing us with on a podcast, telling us how we're full of stuff.
Well, we encourage, and part of it is that we encourage the interaction among our members. That's part of the reason that we set up this Discord, because we have an active, thriving community there, so that we can talk through.
That is growing.
We express our opinion, and then we discuss it every single day in this group. But let's get back on track. So supply is high. The numbers are coming out tomorrow. Production is 105.5. We've grown 3 BCF a day since the beginning of November. My suspicion is up that there's something in the counting that either we were higher earlier and we're just now catching up. There's something wrong because I can't map that 3 BCF. But if you have a comment and you have a thought, let us know. But I would say, where are we going? Our projection based upon demand is that, let me get back to the supply side. Supply. Hey Scott, good to see you. Thanks for popping in. Let's see. And so this is where we are on crude oil, which in 2022 we were at 96. We've grown just about 10 BCF in the last year. Now, a big
folks,
reason.
Brian gets a little distracted because he's now calling natural gas crude oil. So he meant this one.
Did I say crude oil?
Yes, you did.
Oh, well, I didn't mean that. So,
it is actually, one of my goals that Brian and our friendship that he points out my faults and I try to point out his, just so that we stay humble.
So when you look at the growth, a lot of it is fueled in this rig ramp up, which
Right.
we had a massive rig increase, and there's a delayed impact that can be anywhere from 60 days to a year of when that production comes online. This buildup has since peaked and has started dropping. And let me get back to this window. So this buildup of production is a result of those rigs coming online. With the drop, we expect production, in my opinion, by mid next year, we're going to be below 100 BCF a day unless we start adding rigs. So I don't think that's going to happen. We do have a delayed impact from the rig drop that we've seen thus far. We expected production to start to be tipping. We are seeing it topping on crude oil, but we haven't seen it dip on natural gas as of yet. Do you have any thoughts on that, Bill?
Yes. The one thing you need to realize that there is a rig level count that will keep us from declining below production.
Right.
Okay. And so the more production we have, that means there's more decline coming.
Yep.
Okay. So because your first month of production is your highest month of production, you decline from there on. So if we've had an increase in production, we will have an increase in decline. And one of the things that we have to watch, there is a rig level that sort of offsets that decline. And I personally think we dropped below that rig level to where we could overcome the decline.
Yep. So, and we'll close off with our bullet points on where we're going next. But Neil has a question. Several seasonal charts on natural gas. It seems that December through February. Let's actually take a look at this. I assume, Neil, you are talking about prices, not production, and that would make sense. So let's take a look at 2024 right now. Or no, let's take a look because 24 is beat down. Let's take a look at 2025. So you have high in January, high in February, high in November, high in December, and then a steep drop and then a slow climb. So the seasonal reason for natural gas for doing this is most of the natural gas follows a storage cycle of injecting natural gas because we have a surplus of natural gas in the United States when we inject it into storage for use in the cold months, because that's when
very traditional. That's a very traditional curve right there. And when you see it rising, in the summer, that's storage and heat from natural gas fired electricity.
So when you get to looking at the December, February trend, You also have to take a look, are you looking at a continuous chart? Or are you looking at a different type of chart? Because it's going to represent a little bit differently, because this curve is going to be represented in the futures contract. For example, right now we are trading January. We are not trading December. We are trading January. And that's what the futures contract is currently trading. And right now, January, let's look at 24, is really beat down. You can see this is the financial market saying we have way too much supply. And December is notorious for being actually a weak priced month. You kind of erode down. And a lot of reason is if it doesn't get cold right off, then a lot of people sell the market. And that's actually what has happened this year. So hopefully that kind of answers your question. Feel free to reach out to us, Neil, if we didn't answer your question. Bill, did I miss anything on that?
I think you got that.
Okay, so let's actually get back to kind of our sum up, and we are going to stick around for any questions, but let's go ahead and get the bullet points. Our opinion.
So Brian, what are the three things that you have to worry about when you're talking about the price of natural gas?
Weather.
That's it. Those are the three things.
So, and it is part of the reason that we actually track weather for 6 to 10, 8 to 14, weeks 3 to 4. This is put out by NOAA. 6 to 10 looks pretty close to normal. 8 to 14 looks above normal. But the 3 to 4 starts to moderate. This syncs up exactly with what Prestige Weather is expecting, which it's going to be choppy. But here's what I'd say. Weather is going to drive things for the rest of December. So we're going to flop up, down all together. And I think when I take a look, and this gets back to Tom's question, are we looking at $3? We are going to at a minimum build back to 281. We're not financial advisors, that's my opinion. 281 at a minimum. I actually project that we'll extend back to $3. It does need a catalyst, and right now weather is not providing a catalyst unless there's a supply disruption. So right now you have to wait for weather. When that's going to come, I don't know. I mean,
we know that secret, Brian, and we'll for a phone call we can reveal to you secret. Prestige Weather sort of gave us the secret on how to predict some of this stuff, and so I had never thought about it, but it was a really good, very physical way to understand it.
Yep.
So we'll share that with you for only $89 a month.
Yeah, and this is why we provide the weather. It's all in one place, and that's really what we're looking at. So the things that we're going to be watching, weather for the balance of December, the rig drops are going to have an impact. Let's get back to that. The rig drop is going to have an impact on supply. We're already seeing a topping on crude oil, and I expect gas to follow, and there's going to be some longer term impacts there. Shorter term, the reason that we haven't had any substantial drop in production is because of expansions of things like Permian Express and Whistler, and it is currently masking declines. Efficiency gains are not going to be enough to offset the rig drops, and that, my opinion, by June, we're going to be at 100 BCF unless rigs start going in a different direction. Currently, with the current prices, I don't see them. I see rigs currently eroding away. And I would also say, where is this? With
and
the
by the way, folks, when you hear the word rig efficiency, what they're talking about is how many days does it take a rig to drill how many feet?
Yes.
And so rig efficiency means that they can drill more feet in a year than they did last year. That's rig efficiency. And so if you don't have anywhere to go, if you don't have a market to go with the gas, those are aspects that do not go into rig efficiency.
Well, and that's part of the reason. Let me pull up this page of why we're talking. While that pulls up, I'll go back to this. We are looking at increased export capacity this year. Currently, we need to see how the weather in Europe pans out. Currently, it's on projection for January through March and even into April that we're going to have higher than normal demand. But what I would say is when we actually track rig efficiency as far as new production volume added from new rigs, and yeah. So we actually track all the new production that is coming into play, and it is already starting to tip over. So when we're tracking this, we're already starting to see the declines are coming and new production being added to displace that is not going to be able to keep up, and that's the reason that we have that. Any parting words, Bill, or any closing words? And feel free to ask questions. We're gonna hang out for another 5 minutes, so feel free to ask any questions, anything burning, or if we didn't answer your question, let me know. I will close off with some technicals, which, oof, this is a big drop today. So this 271, once that broke, it broke all the way down. It did stop at this support level. I do expect to climb back to 263. I want to see what tomorrow has in play because our storage injection and release of weekly numbers might be kind of interesting. So any closing thoughts, Bill?
Well, I think today, even right now, nat gas is trying to make a little bit of a comeback, not much, but a little bit of a comeback. And the other thing is that we do follow European storage as well. And so at some point, we'll just have a sit down and talk about Europe and how it's affected. And just your one little fun fact of the day, when European storage is full, it only has 25% of the total need for Europe for natural gas for the year.
Right.
So, and there are 15 countries who do not have any natural gas storage at all, and they have to buy it from someone else. Lots of stuff we learn about all the time. It's always interesting discussions with you guys. And man, we appreciate you watching. You know, it's the time of the Christmas season. You know, be generous, help people out, be kind.
Yes. 100%. So appreciate you watching. If you enjoyed this, drop a like, drop a comment, share it. It really does help. And we appreciate you coming and spending some time with us. And if you have any questions, there's information down below, or drop us a comment. We'd be happy to get back to you. We're here to help you. So thank you so much for being here. And Giorgio, thanks so much. We see you. We see you each week. So so we're looking forward to that. Tom, we'll talk to you on Friday. Scott, appreciate you stopping in. Sorry we didn't get James online, but he had a curveball thrown at him. So appreciate you guys. So thanks so much. Zuzana, hopefully I pronounced that right. Thanks so much. Appreciate you stopping in. And I think that's all we have. Is that all we have, Bill?
Yeah, you know, the way you can help the most is subscribe for $89 a month.
Yes. So thanks so much. Thanks for showing up. We do this every Wednesday at noon Central Time. So, and if you have any comments, suggestions, criticisms, like, subscribe, and let us know what you like, what you want to see more of. So thanks so much. Appreciate you, and we will see you next week.